Are you ready?
As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run.
You know, they have those nerds clusters, which is new. Yeah, which is good.
10-5, touchdown!
Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
What are we doing?
Wild along bases. We're not dead yet.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Welcome to Press Box After Dark. Today is Thursday, October 31st, or Halloween to those who celebrate, which I hope is all of us.
The
in
Monster
this
Mash
podcast. As we get started, what we know is that Freddie Freeman might have just cemented himself as a GOAT with the way he's been played in the World Series. I'm excited to talk about that. Cam, you're the one who's making funny noises, so let's start with you. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm glad you brought up Freddie Freeman. I have a quick question before we get started, kind of for the group, little bit for Herod, but I have a buddy I work with who's a Dodgers fan, and he knows I'm a Braves fan, and he came up to me the other day and he said after that walk-off grand slam in Game 1 that cements him as a Hall of Fame entry for the Dodgers versus the Braves. And I don't know that I agree with that.
My first thought is you got to play some years for a franchise. I don't think you can.
Right. He was a Brave
way longer.
He was a Brave in 2010 and stayed with them through the worst years possible, and then got them
also the player gets to pick who he goes into the Hall with.
It's true. What's up, buddy? Jordan, I know you haven't been feeling good lately.
Yeah, man. I went to Florida for a work conference and came back with a little souvenir called COVID. It's not even trendy to have COVID anymore.
That's
so
very 2020 of you.
Yeah, you're 4 years out.
4 years behind the fad, but I'm on the up and up. Been watching a little World Series and college football, and yeah, I had to watch my Longhorns last week in the hotel sports bar, and then I got to watch them back home while I was coughing my lungs up this week. So things have been
Where do you stand on this Freddie Freeman thing?
Again, I think I don't think one moment necessarily defines who a player goes in or doesn't go in with. If I'm Freddie Freeman and my career ends right now today, I'm going in as a Brave. I mean, that's pretty logical to me, but stranger things have happened, like Greg Maddux going in without a uniform.
Yeah, how crazy was that? As a Cubs fan, I was disappointed that he didn't put an A on his hat. He should have went in as a Brave. That's my opinion, but I mean, he was a great Cub, but
he was
one
great
of
as
those
both.
things that it's weird to me that baseball's always made people go in with a team.
Yeah, it is weird.
Like, who cares? Just be a Hall of Famer.
Landon, how you doing, buddy?
Phenomenal. Got some new eyes, so we're good.
New eyes, just in time for Halloween, or what?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Basically, I mean, we're going without glasses now, so we're good, doing good.
He's our walking advertisement for LASIK.
Indeed.
And he doesn't know who Freddie Freeman is. So
yeah, I was gonna say,
I just saw him get on base on the TV.
Where do you stand?
What
on
does he
Frederick
do?
Freeman?
He hits
the ball.
We just missed a great opportunity to say LASIK if you're listening.
Oh yeah. Well, once we get Hunter in here, he can start.
Zach, if you're going to have the intro, you got to have the plugs, bro.
Yeah, come on, Zach.
For LASIK, the Braves, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, we got a lot of stuff going on here.
Just LASIK in general, not a specific doctor. Just the entire brand. Love it.
Is LASIK a company?
It's the acronym for what the surgery means. I can't tell you what it means, but anyway, Hunter, how you doing, bud?
I think if you tell us what that means, it's a HIPAA violation, and that's the last thing that we need on this podcast. Well, boys, I'm be honest, I'm hot right now. I'm very mad at Mississippi State football. And if I could just get 2 minutes of uninterrupted time, you can put me on a timer. I just need to speak my heart out to Mississippi State football and how bad they are, and the fact that we still have yet to fire our defensive coordinator, Coleman Hutzler. Let me just read off our stats right now. Points per game, we're 128th in the country. Giving up yards per game, 131st. Yards per play, 133rd. Third down conversion rate, 122. Fourth down conversion rate, 133rd. We haven't had a sack since September 28th. We have 5 on the year, and there have been 2 Power 4 teams that have fired their defensive coordinators this week, and we are still paying this man $1 million. I know he knows more football than me. I know he'll know more football than me for the rest of my life and his life. He's awful. He's terrible. Fire the man. And then what did Mississippi State's football Twitter do today before we're going to lose to UMass on Saturday? They posted defensive highlights on Twitter. Whoever runs the social media account for Mississippi State football, fire them too. That was stupid. So tone deaf, so stupid. The whole fan base knows that the defense sucks, and you just try to hype them up for no freaking reason. I had to get it off my chest, boys. I'm sorry. That's why my name is Fire Hutzler in the chat tonight. I'm going to bring my energy down, and I'm good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why are you so hot that your 1-4 team is now 1-6?
The thing is, Jordan,
You weren't
is
this
that
bothered 2 weeks ago.
literally, I have never in my life seen a defensive performance that was so bad that words can't describe how awful it was. We are literally the 30th in total defense. In the SEC, we are the worst defense by 1,000 yards.
Hang the banner.
As far as yards given up, we are over 1,000 yards worse. And there's other teams that are taking their program seriously and getting rid of their defensive coordinators now, like West Virginia. Good job, Cameron. Central Florida. Good job, Golden Knights. But yet here we are, already the bottom of the conference, about to get dumpstered even more, and we have yet to fire the man. Get rid of him and start rebuilding the defense. That's all.
I have a hard time.
What are they going to do?
To this.
Just let any other, literally ask Corso on NCAA football. It could be better, because guess what? It can't get any worse. We're already the worst team in the conference. We're already the 130th worst. The teams below us are Air Force, Kent State, and I can't even remember the other one, because who cares? We should not. I'm not saying we have to be the number 1 defense in the country, but if Mississippi State's putting out the same defense as Kent State, that's a problem.
But I can't even listen to this, because if I remember to like our very first episode that we did, you came into this year saying, I know we're going to be terrible. It's a rebuilding year, and we're going to have to outscore everybody 50 to whatever, because I know our defense is bad. You knew this coming in. What are you surprised about? What are you mad about? This is exactly who you thought they would be.
They are who we thought they were.
Hey, Hunter.
The Bears play the Cardinals this week. It's a perfect time for that.
Look, here's the thing. You fire your DC, what's that going to do? Brent Venables ain't walking through that door.
Ask the Jets how that's going.
Look, here's my thing. I understand that is a fair criticism, Zach. Fair to throw that back at me. Okay. I expected them to be bad. I did not expect them to be an absolute dumpster fire. I mean, it's awful. It's
They're
so
not a
bad.
dumpster fire until they get steamboated by UMass.
But here's the thing, though, is that you're going to get steamboated by UMass because you already gave up 41 points to Toledo.
Yeah, you're right.
And so here's the thing. So you just wanted me to say that. But here's the thing, though, is that, like, I expected them to be bad. I didn't expect them to be literally the worst defense in the country. There's a difference. Sorry. I did not expect them to be 130th.
It sounds like the blame is on you as a fan for having expectations that were much too high.
I wanted you to give up 28 points a game, and we're giving up 30 now.
They check the box.
Here's the thing, Hunter. 28 points a game, that's middle of the road. If you thought your defense was going to be middle of the road, I don't know, man.
Give me 30 then. Give me 30, because, like, just give me anything other than what this man has put forth. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I really don't like anybody getting fired because he has a family, but, like, you're literally the worst defensive coordinator in the country. So, like, you have to go. If you're the worst fry cook at McDonald's, you don't keep your job. They get rid of you. So, like, you have to You have to
might-
go.
Wow.
You
At
might
some
keep
point,
it going.
McDonald's needs somebody to cook the fries, bro.
McDonald's, if you're listening.
McDonald's,
Yeah,
if you're
Donald
li-
Trump.
McDonald's, if you're listening. No.
Do we have an agenda for this thing?
No,
We're already off.
I'm
the
I
rails.
sorry.
don't think we do.
I'm sorry. I've been holding that in all day on Twitter. I wanted to tweet mean things. I didn't do it. I was like,
Hunter
I'm
said,
gonna
"Give
get-
me 2 minutes," and then took 9.
No, I was at 2 minutes, and then y'all kept me going because Landon gave me a thumbs up, and I stopped, and then y'all kept me
No,
going.
that was the finger to wrap it up.
All right. Well, Coleman Hutzler, if you're listening, turn it off. I don't like you. All right.
Hunter, we love you.
Spoiler alert: he's not listening.
He's not, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm done. I love Jeff Lebby though. The offense is looking fine. All right. We are Press Box After Dark. I am less angry now. I got it off my chest. I'm good. But this is our first kind of sports only episode. So if you listened to episode 6 where we drafted sports video games, if you didn't, you really should. But we're starting to split our episodes up and trying to keep them a little bit shorter and getting the podcast out every single week for you guys to give some more content so we can grow the brand a little bit. Yes, Landon has a question.
Based on the numbers that the podcast did, they didn't listen to it.
No, Landon, don't say that. No, everybody listened to it. It's really good. We got fans growing. Hey, look, we're growing at a snail's pace, okay? You can't build Rome in a day. But we are Press Box After Dark. If you want to listen to all of our podcasts, and you really should, give us a chance. You can find all of our podcasts on Spotify and Apple Music. You can also find all of the blogs and all of the other fun stuff that we do on our website. That is PressBoxAfterDark.com. You can find a link to that in our bio on Twitter. That's at PressBoxAD. We are on Instagram at PressBoxAfterDark and on TikTok at PressBoxAD. And I'm glad that I got, the Coleman Hutzler rant off my chest because this whole episode, we're focusing on college football. It's definitely my favorite sport. I would say the collective 2 favorite sports in this group is probably college football and Major League Baseball. World Series is wrapping up, and we'll touch that and hang the banner at the end. But I wanted to ask 3 questions to the group, and we're going to pass it around and let everybody answer because we're 9 weeks in, and we're heading down the home stretch here for college football. The first ever 12-team playoff is on the horizon. The first ever college football playoff rankings in this new format come out next week. So I wanted to ask the 3 questions of who has been your most impressive team, who has been the biggest surprise team, and who has been the biggest disappointment for you this season. And so we are going to start it off with the most impressive team. Who would like to start off our discussion for where we're at in college football right now with their most impressive team?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, COVID.
Yeah, I wrote down several things here, but the biggest surprise to me at this point has got to be Indiana. Indiana, you look up and Indiana's undefeated in week 9.
Is this your biggest surprise or most impressive?
This is my biggest surprise. I'll get to the most impressive. But them being undefeated, there's always somebody that you don't expect to be undefeated this late in the season, but it's usually not somebody that is playing a Power 5 schedule. So Indiana, to me, being undefeated at this point is like every single week I see the new poll and I just turn my head and I'm like, they're still up there. They're still doing it.
I'll piggyback off of this one because Indiana was mine as well. I was originally going to go with BYU, but I think Indiana has been the bigger surprise. Indiana obviously took Curt Cignetti away from JMU, and as a JMU grad and obviously huge fan, I mean, the entire fan base for JMU was rightfully upset when he left, but he did everything that he had to do at JMU. He got them through the transition from FCS to FBS. He did it incredibly, had JMU ranked in their very first season as FBS when they weren't even eligible to go to a bowl game. And then last year led them to an incredible season as well, where, if they were having the 12-team format last year and if JMU was eligible, I mean, they would have had a decent chance at making that. And, everyone kind of wrote JMU off a little bit, last year. And I think, the fact that Curt Cignetti goes to Indiana and takes like half the JMU team with him on his way, I think proves how real that JMU team was last year. And I think it's impressive for Curt Cignetti. I mean, he, in a press conference earlier this season, they were asking him how he does it. Curt, how do you do it? He's like, well, just go look at my coaching record. I win everywhere. And that's kind of his attitude towards everything. He expects to win. And I mean, he's doing it. And look, I mean, you can say whatever you want about their schedule. They haven't really played a ton of tough teams yet, but they're beating the crap out of every single team that they play. They're doing exactly what they have to do. And it's all in front of them. They got 3 tough games down the stretch. They got Michigan State this weekend on the road, and then they follow that up with Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue to cap the season off. So it's all in front of them, and you never know. So I think they've been the biggest surprise for me.
I got a question to follow up on that, Cam. Is there any chance he's in Indiana longer than 2 or 3 seasons? I mean, he's got to be a huge name on the carousel right now, right?
Here's the thing. I mean, as a West Virginia fan, I wanted West Virginia to go after him last year, and Neil Brown saved his job with a really good season. I wanted West Virginia to potentially look at him, and I was upset that they didn't. He is a very, very good coach. And, you say, oh, well, he did it at JMU, and before JMU, he did it at Elon. And it's like, oh, well, he hasn't done it at the big schools. Well, now he's at a Power 5, Indiana. And people don't know, well, a lot of people don't know, he started at Alabama with as a coach under Saban. I mean, he's used to coaching at this level. And so anyone who doubts him really needs to reevaluate their thinking there, because he truly does win everywhere that he is at and has proven that at each stop. So does he stay in Indiana more than 2 or 3 years? I think he does potentially stay there, maybe 3 years. He had opportunities to leave JMU after good seasons, and he stayed there. I think he wants to prove that he can build a program first. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. He will definitely get looks though from some bigger schools getting rid of coaches.
He should.
Here's my
Heck
thing:
of a football
isn't
coach.
he in his 60s, Cameron? Isn't he an older coach?
He's an older guy.
Yeah. So
I think the reason that West Virginia specifically didn't go after him is because West Virginia had his dad, Frank Cignetti, as a coach back in I believe the 60s, and he was literally one of the worst football coaches that West Virginia's ever had, and sadly, and I think the Cignetti name kind of would have put some extra pressure on him there. But yeah, I mean, he's either in his 50s or 60s. He's been in the game for a long time, but he does literally just win every single stop.
I think that the way that program has rallied around the football team and rallied around Sigs is something that would be very hard for him to leave, I think, because I mean, I do think he's probably going to coach, a long time, probably I'd say, another 10 years maybe, but like I could see him riding it out at Indiana, because right now it's good and he's a winner everywhere he's been. So I have nothing but, to doubt that it's going to be, unsuccessful in year 2 or year 3 or take a downfall. So I think he's going to keep growing the thing. I don't see why. I see the appeal to go to these bigger schools, to have more money, to have, the chance to land bigger recruits. But I mean, he's kicking everybody's ass at Indiana right now, and they have everything in front of them. The only game left on their schedule that scares me from an outsider is Ohio State. And you're looking at an 11-1 Indiana at worst, right? Because I see them beating, you said Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue. Yeah, the only game on that scares me there for them is Ohio State. And so you're looking at a team that is knocking on the door of being in the playoff or being in the Big Ten championship game, depending on what happens, with the other results around them. But it's been one of the most pleasant surprises to see that football stadium sold out last week in game day there. And if you didn't shed a tear for Lee Corso being there again, I mean, that was awesome. So it's good for that fan base, and it's good to see them rally behind their football team and actually have something to be proud of. So good for Coach Siggs. I know it kind of sucks that he left JMU to do it, but they've been awesome. That's a great pick for both of you guys.
To answer your question, Hunter, he's 63 years old. So, I mean, it's not like he's young, obviously, but I mean, he's certainly no slowing up in him. And I mean, I already mentioned that I was upset he didn't come to West Virginia. He played at West Virginia as well. I forgot to mention that. He was a quarterback back in the 70s and 80s, and he's a Western PA guy, but he's blue collar. I think he's perfect for Indiana. And Indiana, like you said, they're filling that stadium. I think Indiana's the type of school that I feel like deserves a good football team. Like their fans are really, really passionate about it. They just haven't had a good team to root for. So I think that part's awesome.
Zach, why don't you give us we did surprises first. We'll switch it up. Zach, give me your most surprising team in 2024 so far.
Yeah, I think from a positive standpoint, I don't think there's really another answer than Indiana.
I have one if you don't.
I have one too, and I'm going to stick with my home state. And this pains me a little bit, but the Cyclones are playing really good football. And what I like is we've kind of always figured out, probably for the last 3 years, they've always had probably a top 4 defense in the Big 12, which I know is not hard to do, but they've been kind of built defensively for the last few years. And now they got a quarterback to go with it. I really like Rocco Becht. I don't really like to see them succeed because I'm a Hawkeye fan, so duh. But it is also really cool to see them doing what they're doing. And that game against Central Florida, I thought for sure they were losing the UCF game. And they miraculously pulled that thing out. And I was looking at their schedule. They got Tech at home. They're at Kansas. They host Cincinnati. They go to Utah, and they host Kansas State. So that K-State game is their hardest one left. And then if they make it through that, it's probably BYU in the Big 12 championship game. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a first-round bye in the playoff if you're a top 4. So, I mean, that would be nuts if we get into our first year of the top 12 and Iowa State is a top 4 seed. So, good for the Cyclones. Jack Trice Stadium used to be just a terrible place to go watch football, and it is now a fun place. Ames is they're getting some things figured out, and you know what? I still hate them for beating Iowa in September, but you know what? They're undefeated, and they look like a hard out because of their defense.
Every single year when Iowa State and Iowa play each other, every single year I look at it and go, nah, there's no way Iowa State can beat them. There's no way they can beat them. And then a year like this year happens, and it's like, oh, maybe they really are that good. I would also like to point out, I know that we've talked about this before, but Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12, the parity that created in that conference, all of a sudden, BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado are your top 4 teams. That's brilliant for the Big 12.
And 2 years ago, TCU was the national runner-up.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a really, really good spot.
And when that game kicked off, it was 0-0 too, and then I don't know what happened after that. But
and to be honest, I almost went with BYU as my surprise of the year so far. Now they also haven't really played a lot of teams. They did beat Kansas State, so that's a great win. Outside of that, they haven't played a lot of teams. They have been probably my second most surprising team, just because last year, West Virginia just absolutely took them to the woodshed, and I was not seeing BYU being that good this year.
Yeah, Mormons. Yeah.
But Zach, I like the pick, Zach. It's another pick that breaks my little West Virginia heart because Rocco Becht is the son of Anthony Becht, a Hall of Fame tight end from West Virginia. And Rocco got passed up on by West Virginia because he was too small. And West Virginia went with 4-star Nico Marchiol, who is now he just filled in for Garrett Green this past weekend. And Nico hasn't been bad, but I mean, Rocco's been really, really good for Iowa State. Now, would he have done the same things at West Virginia? Who knows? But it does hurt a little bit to see him doing that at a different school. But I do love that pick, though.
My favorite part about him is he's clutch. I don't think he's a world beater by any means, but when they need him to come up with a drive, he comes up with a drive, and he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch.
Well, we've talked about him at least twice already, but my surprise team was Brigham Young. the Mighty Mormons out in Provo.
You just who calls them Brigham Young?
I just thought it would be. We've said BYU the whole
No one
time. I was like,
knows-
well, we got to
no
say
one knows.
Brigham Young.
No one.
By
knows
the
what
way-
that means.
By the
That's
way,
like
Hunter,
saying
Mighty
Louisiana State.
Mormon sounds like a backyard baseball team.
It kind of does, doesn't it? That'd be
Mighty
hilarious.
Mormon Power Ranger.
Today, the Mighty Mormons take on the Super Duper Melonheads. No, I picked BYU. Obviously, Indiana jumped to mind. Iowa State did jump to mind. But then I looked over BYU, and it's just, I don't know if it's as feel good of a story as Indiana, because Indiana literally has been nothing for a long time. And BYU, like every now and then, has like
Pass.
BYU's literally like every other year or so, they have like a 9-win season or an 8-win season or sometimes a 10-win season. So like they're not always terrible, but they were really bad last year. And I think in our preseason rankings of Big 12 quarterbacks, I put Gary Bohannon as their starting quarterback and ranked him 15th, I think, or something like that. He's only played like 3 snaps. Their quarterback, help me on the last name here. Does anybody
Jake
have it?
Retzloff.
Jake
Jake Retzloff.
Retzloff. I didn't want to butcher it, so thank you. Their Jewish quarterback. He's got 1,800 yards passing on the year. The BYU shirts, have you seen those on Twitter? They're fantastic. They're incredible.
Phenomenal.
He's also like Rocco, clutch. He's been absolutely clutch. They had the Hail Mary to beat Oklahoma State. They have the great win against Kansas State, which is going to be big for Big 12 tiebreakers with them, being up there in the top 4. And then also, too, they have a non-conference win against SMU, who's up in the top half of the ACC. Now, the ACC, not that great of a conference, but still, that's a good out-of-conference win. So, I mean, you can't look at their season and say that it's not impressive or it's not, it's a joke or anything like that. I think BYU is kind of serious. Their defense forces a lot of turnovers. I do think that if they run up against somebody in the playoff, if they win the Big 12, if they run up against somebody like a Tennessee or a Penn State or a Texas A&M or something like that, they might get dumpstered. But, you never really know because that team's just got something. It's kind of like Iowa State in a way, and I really hope they meet in the Big 12 championship game. It's kind of like they got something special going. Both of them do, and I kind of just want to see those two undefeated in the Big 12 championship game. Their final 4 games on the schedule. They got the Holy War against Utah, whose offense is awful right now. Kansas, who has been a big disappointment. Noted really good football team by this podcast, Arizona State. And then Houston, who is also one of the worst offensive teams in the country. So their path to the Big 12 championship game, very, very doable for them. Everything's in front of them. They also have one of the best mascots in college football, so shout out to Cosmo the Cougar. But, yeah, BYU, my biggest surprise, and they're fun to watch. They're really, really fun to watch. That late-night BYU kick has been very enjoyable this year.
Here's my last thing with BYU before we kick it to Landon. I feel like BYU's time is coming, honestly, and you can call me a hater all you want. They should have lost that SMU game, and they should have lost that Oklahoma State game. They're 8-0, so you are what your record says you are, but I feel like their time is coming. That's all I got to say about that.
That's very fair. Landon, who is your biggest surprise of 2024?
I'm going to kick it to FCS and go to my alma mater. It's got to be the Abilene Christian Wildcats. I mean, they've been ranked. Yes, we love the sound effect of the Wildcat. They were ranked in September, which is something that I think I never thought I would say. And they've stayed in there. They got all the way to number 10 at one point. I was just going back. I think they went 22 to 25 to 17. And yeah, and then down to 10. Now I think they're back up to 17 now. So struggled a little bit. They had Idaho at home, which was a really, really tight game. Idaho's currently number 4.
Don't disrespect the Kibby Dome.
I'm not going to disrespect Kibby Dome. They played great, but ACU almost knocked them off. I mean, it was nuts. I was there. But yeah, that's definitely my biggest surprise team. I mean, we all worked there for however long. I was there 6 years. I think Zach was the next one that was there for 5. And there's just no way, based on what I witnessed in 2017 and 2018, that we would be at this point, but we are. So kudos to Coach Patterson and the guys out there.
Idaho is the rare FBS to FCS
Correct.
transition.
Correct.
I think they're the only team that's done that.
Maybe.
but it's been great for him. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, they
Well,
fit
and to your
into the Big Sky because they play at a dome. So half that conference plays in a dome. So that's where they belong. That's their true home.
You have to if you play up there, though.
and Landon, to your point, I mean, ACU has everything in front of them as well. I mean, they got Southern Utah this weekend, which should be a win. They got Austin Peay after that, and then they finished the year with Tarleton and SFA, which will define their season.
yeah.
Always does.
But
Austin Peay-
definitely SFA not being in the conference anymore, I think it's a real chance for them to make the playoff. Honestly,
Austin Peay is going to be kind of the big test, I think, of actually conference opponents that's left. You know, Tarleton, they're hillbillies down there, so
yeah, but they've been good since
they have 100%. But I think the thing that I've seen out of this ACU team is Coach Patterson has actually focused them on winning and playing a full game, which has never happened in Abilene. So I think there's a good chance that, you know, they win out and we see ACU in the playoffs, which is phenomenal. The FCS playoffs, I'll say, just in case everybody was confused. The better playoffs. I said it.
The bigger
Bigger
playoffs. So no, I
Impressive
love,
teams.
I love the pick, Landon, getting the FCS roots in there. So I like that. We skipped over it because we went surprise first. But does anybody have their pick for the most impressive team? Jordan is waving his hand.
I got to go first on this so I can shed my reputation a little bit as a hater. But most impressive right now, it's Texas A&M, man.
Damn it, that was mine. Go ahead.
It's Texas A&M. They get a new coach, a new system. Expectations are super low. They're paying their previous coach more than they're paying their current guy. They lose to Notre Dame to start the year. They're 7-0 since then, sole possession of first place in the conference. They're doing it with 2 quarterbacks, no quarterbacks, whatever you want to call it. I think as a Texas fan, a lot of people saw that game as, cool, we're going to renew the rivalry with Little Brother again. And all of a sudden, that game looks like it's going to be really meaningful for both teams. Texas A&M, it's a big time season for them. As a Texas fan, again, it makes me a little bit nervous because if this is what Elko's doing in his first season, and I admittedly was not a proponent of Mike Elko, but if this is what he's doing in year 1 in College Station, year 2 and 3 might look a little bit different in Austin as well.
My thing about Texas A&M, because that was my most impressive team, is that they don't necessarily have the big flashy win outside of Missouri, which I think is kind of a paper tiger. I don't think they should still be ranked in the AP top 25. But my thing with A&M is that I think Elko is working there and will work there is because he's a no-nonsense guy. I don't know if Jimbo was necessarily a nonsense guy, but like Kevin Sumlin couldn't figure it out. Jimbo Fisher couldn't figure it out. They gave him a fake national championship trophy. What did Mike Elko get his introductory press conference? No one watched it. No one cared because everybody was like, oh, that guy from Duke that made Duke successful for a couple of years. Well, we'll see how he does in the SEC. And they lose that first game to Notre Dame, and then he absolutely does an incredible coaching job of keeping that team focused, keeping that team centered. And they go out and they play good football on the defensive side. They have found out who their quarterback is, and Marcel Reed is going to be an absolute menace with Colin Klein as his offensive coordinator. He knows how to call games with running quarterbacks. They throw it well enough. Their schedule is light. That game against Texas is going to be the most hostile environment for the Longhorns, maybe in program history, especially if A&M keeps rolling off these wins and they're 11-1 going into that game.
Yeah, if they're both 11-1.
Oh my God, it's going to be a hornet's nest. It's going to be
if that game is potentially the one that keeps one of those two teams out of the college football playoff. Yeah, there's going to be some riots going down, man.
Yeah. So I mean, I have to give a big time shout out to Mike Elko, and I agree with you, Jordan. If this is year 1, the sleeping giant that has been Texas A&M since Johnny Manziel left is finally going to be awoken, and that's going to be a problem for everybody else in the SEC.
If Mike Elko is what everybody thought Jimbo Fisher was going to be in College Station, you better look out. Because right now, Texas is reeling. They don't have an identity right now. They have struggled four games in a row. Texas A&M is picking up steam, and they're making a case to be the best team in the state of Texas right now.
Rice would like a word.
That's for all you people named Hunter that call me a hater all the time.
I like how this is hey, look, no one can say anything about this podcast. We are a podcast that is covering all of college football, and we put all of our rivalries aside because Zach shouted out Iowa State, Jordan shouted out Texas A&M. So clearly, we will recognize when our rivals are good. We don't like it, but we'll recognize it. So Cameron, give me your most impressive team of 2024.
Oh, I wanted to go next.
Okay,
Go
screw
ahead.
Cameron.
Go ahead, Landon.
Yeah, screw Cameron.
Fuck you, Cam.
Yeah. You know
Damn
what?
it, we got to go explicit again. Dang it, Zach.
You know what, Cameron? You know what? You don't even get to say one. Landon, say two.
I only have one, so Cam, I promise you get a turn.
Well, damn it.
My most impressive team, unfortunately, because I hate Dallas, is going to be SMU in their ACC inaugural thing. And Cam's giving me a no, but I don't care because I'm choosing them. I mean, they're playing Pitt this weekend for most likely who's going to play Clemson in the title game for the ACC.
Miami would like a word.
See, they're gonna screw something up. In my opinion, hey, we all have one. So yeah, that's who I'm going with. Y'all can debate whether I suck at this or not.
No, you should have said Southern Methodist. That's because that's all we're doing now, is saying teams' full names.
I don't disagree that SMU has been impressive, but at the same time, they just absolutely limped out of Durham with a win this past weekend. They should not have won that game. And I'm a homer because I work at Duke, whatever. You can say whatever you want. They turned the ball over 6 times. And I was texting you guys during the game that this Duke defense is the best defense that I've ever seen. They truly are. They are unreal. And kudos to SMU. They did exactly what they needed to do. They blocked the kick at the end of the game, a chip shot that would have easily won it for Duke. But they, Duke straight up lost that game. They couldn't kick the field goal at the end of the game to win it. And then they go for 2 at home to try and win it in overtime. And Malik Murphy could have ran into the end zone easily, and he decided to just chuck it up to no one in the end zone. I mean, SMU, again, they're having a good season. I don't know that they're that impressive, though.
What I just heard was that they had 6 turnovers in a football game and won the football game.
So I was about to hit on that.
And there was a tweet, I forget what the exact number was, but like in this century, teams that turn the ball over 6 times are like 1 in 130 or something like that.
No, it's more than that. It's something ridiculous. Like, we used to have a chart that we went over every single week that if you have lost more than 4 turnovers, or if you're negative 4 turnovers in a game, there's a like 0.1% chance that you win that game, which is wild. That now Duke had 6. Or
truthfully, I think it just
6.
speaks to how bad the Duke offense is. Really, I think that's what it comes down to. The offense is terrible.
And I think SMU deserves some love. They leveled up and moved to the ACC, and everybody thought they were going to be a doormat, and they're not. I mean, they're winning games in front of them.
And that's the big piece, is everybody was like, why the heck are they moving to the ACC? This doesn't make any sense for the ACC to do this. They're not taking any money out of it, so why do it? But I think, they've proved that they can hang at least a little bit.
Also, whether they can keep it up is a different story. But.
Exactly, 100%.
Best logo in college football.
Yes.
With the D on the white helmet. Yeah.
Hunter likes the D. Cam, your world.
Good one, Landon. This one's kind of lame. It's super obvious to go with the number 1 team, but I am going to go with the number 1 team in the country and say Oregon. They have been the most impressive team to me. Obviously, they had the win over Ohio State, which was huge. I thought they were going to get absolutely curb stomped in that game. But the part that's impressive to me is that they start the year with Idaho, where they almost lose that game. And then they follow that up by barely squeaking by Boise State. Now, obviously, Boise State, we know now, is a little more for real than we expected with Ashton Genty and that explosive offense. But to be able to squeak past those 2 teams and keep it together, not lose faith, and completely turn it around and just destroy every single other team that they've played outside of obviously Ohio State. I think that is very impressive. And they're 8-0. They got 4 games left, and they're going to win all 4 of those games. It's for them, it's an easy schedule here on out. They're going to be 12-0 and in that Pac-12 championship game. So I think they're the most impressive team.
Big Ten championship game.
Big Ten championship there, bud.
What did I say?
You said Pac-12. That's a dead conference.
Remember,
Yeah.
remember USC.
Yeah. Hey,
blew the Pac-
special shout out to Washington State. They've been impressive as well. 7-1.
USC blew up the Pac-12 to lose to Maryland.
When we first started doing college football predictions, Oregon was a really sexy pick from this group. And Cam's right. Those first 2 weeks, they looked awful, man. But I like Dan Lanning. I thought they could have made an argument for the best team in the country a season ago. I think this season they're trying to make sure there's no bones about it. That win over Ohio State is a signature win for them. I think they've got all the momentum they need to ride this thing for a while.
I'd be curious if Ohio State could manage the clock. They might have walked out of there with a win anyway.
They might have.
You know,
certainly could have, and we may see them play again.
Yeah, I think they will. I have a feeling they'll play in the Big Ten champ game. Can I transition into mine?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's not a team. It's just Ashton Genty. That's all it is. I want him to win the Heisman so badly. I
do too. I want him to win
he's the best
so
player
bad.
he's the best player in the country. It's unbelievable. I was like, what are his stats? 1,376 yards and 18 touchdowns. Come on.
In 7 games.
That's insane.
That's insane on a video game on easy level.
The fact that he's on Barry Sanders like type of pace is just it's ridiculous.
So obviously he's why Boise State's anything, and so he's my best team. So there you go.
I do like how the Heisman could come down to 2 players that aren't just the quarterback on the best team, because it's either going to be, I think in my opinion, it's either Travis Hunter or Ashton Genty. And so I think that I love seeing the best football player award going to the best football player, because I think those 2 are clearly the best 2 players.
Yeah, Travis Hunter's doing things that we don't see this ever. I mean, he is dominating on both sides of the ball. It's really, really impressive.
I want to say this, though, about the Boise State kid. Every year there's somebody from a non-Power 5 that puts up monster numbers, and everybody goes, well, look at who they played. That's what they should do. Okay, but nobody else is doing it. Nobody else at any level of football is doing what he is doing right now. So you can say that, but like for him to be even in the Heisman conversation, he has to put up those kind of numbers. And he's doing it every single week without an effort. Like it looks easy for that dude.
And someone can fact check me here and look at his stats from last week. Last week was probably one of his most underwhelming games. He only had 1 touchdown, but he had like 130 or 140 yards, and it's like, oh, that's an underwhelming game from Ashton Genty. And for everyone else, that's an incredible game.
Yeah, this was his rough game. 33 carries, 128 yards, and a touch.
And that's against their second best opponent of the year. That's UNLV. That was big for Mountain West standing. So that was their biggest game in conference that year. So
that argument every year is look at who he plays. That's what he should do. Nobody else is doing it, man.
Well, and I
one of a kind.
I think his big argument is that he did it against Oregon as well.
No question.
He ran all over them. So I think everything that he has done, he has proved that he can do it against any team.
I think for the Heisman, you could make the case that people make for the MVP every year. Who's the most valuable player, right? I think you could make a case for either one of those 2 guys that you just mentioned. But for him to be putting up the numbers that he's putting up in that offense is absurd.
Hunter, I know we're about to transition into the most disappointing team. Can we just all agree? Is anyone else going to say anything other than Florida State?
I am, because I wanted to try to be different.
But there is no other answer.
Same.
There is no other answer.
There is no other answer. We can all, as a group, collectively shit on them real quick, and then if there are any other picks, we can do that. Who wants to shit on them first?
Cameron sounds like
I will.
The honors.
I'll go ahead. I mean, working at Duke, I looked at the Duke schedule coming into the season, and I was like, oh man, that Florida State game is going to be huge. We may be 5-1 or whatever our record was, and that game might be huge. That'll be a huge national stage. And then they come into that game 1-5 or 1-6 or whatever it was. I mean, they're just terrible. They are a very, very bad football team.
They're awful. Awful.
I think it's a great case study in using the portal and overusing the portal, because this is a team that heavily used the portal, built up their roster, went undefeated, had a bad timing injury, got left out of the playoff. That's not a discussion for right now. And they used the portal again to build up their team again. And everybody in the preseason was like, this is going to be the best defensive line in the country. Florida State is back. They are back to being the absolute class of the ACC. And then they get embarrassed by Georgia Tech. And then they get embarrassed by Boston College. And then they lose to Memphis. And then they somehow find a way to beat Cal. And then they haven't won since. So it's been an absolute fascinating watch from the standpoint of they are crumbling, and this is the bad side of the transfer portal that nobody wants to talk about, because nobody thinks that it can happen to their team until it happens to your team. And now Florida State is in this situation, and mainly because a dude wouldn't eat dog poop out of a cup. But I think that curse is real. But, I mean, it is fascinating to see how bad they got so quickly.
And two things can be right. They were not one of the 4 best teams last year. No. They had the best record, but I don't think they were one of the 4 best teams. And also their fans had every right to be pissed that they didn't make the playoff. Both of those things can be true. 100% they can both live in the same space.
And the worst revenge tour of all time.
But you need a quarterback. And they don't have a quarterback. So you're done.
What drives me nuts about it is that Dabo is looking at it going, ha, see, I told you fools not to use the portal. And he's still winning.
Hey, he's got just 1 loss, and they're right there. Yeah.
Don't forget about Clemson. They've been impressive as well. No, I mean, I think Florida State is the answer. I have a couple of quick ones for disappointing.
So do I.
So USC's a choice, boys, right?
USC's absolutely a choice.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Lincoln Riley in 5 seasons at Oklahoma was 55-10. This is year 3 at USC. He's 23-12. He's already got more losses at USC than he did in 5 years at Oklahoma. He's 4-4, and he's ahead of Maryland in the standings, who he already lost to. At what point do we stop pretending Lincoln Riley is some kind of elite college football coach? He's not. He was the quarterback whisperer. Every quarterback he ever has ends up disappointing one way or another. And now, yet again, another quarterback left for the NFL, and we see Lincoln Riley. He was supposed to just reload, and he was going to take the Big Ten by storm. And he missed the memo. Dan Lanning got the memo right. Dan Lanning and Oregon are doing it right. They're the only team from that league that transitioned to the Big Ten the right way. USC is an embarrassment. I'm not sure that they're the best team in LA at this moment. Yeah, I said it.
You do have to it's up to a school like USC to understand what you're getting into when you move to the Big Ten.
100%.
It is a very different conference than it is.
And I was the one early on in the season saying, look, USC looks really good. They could make a run at this thing. And then a couple of weeks later, it was very obvious that I was incorrect in that assessment. They look like doo-doo every single week, man.
Zach, do you have a disappointing team, or is USC?
There's a few. Nobody's on the level of Florida State. I was looking at a couple of honorable mentions. I have a hard time feeling too strongly about this with Michigan. I think they've been bad, but I also didn't. I don't know what I was expecting from them this year. I don't know if maybe it was quite like this much of a drop off, but
it was for me.
I kind of thought they would be kind of rough. I'm going to put maybe a sneaky one out there. And Hunter, you might like this. I think Ole Miss should be disappointed that they already have 2 losses.
Give it to me. Let me hear
this was supposed to be their season. And I do think they have underperformed. I think they have a chance to still get to the playoff, because it's, everything's still in front of a lot of teams, and 2 losses is probably your ceiling. Like, you can't lose any more, but so they probably have to win out, which is a lot of pressure. But I think this was supposed to be kind of a playoff or bust year, and I think they should be disappointed that they already have 2 losses. That's me. I don't know. Maybe not everybody feels that way.
Everything you said is 100% correct. Mississippi State and Ole Miss are programs that you have to wait 5 years to even have a chance at this. And this was Ole Miss's time. This was their time to push all their chips on the table. They dumped all this money into NIL, and they still have a chance. I'm not going to be naive and say that they're done. That's just crazy talk. They can easily find a way to beat Georgia and win out. They can easily sneak into the playoff at like the 10 or 11 seed, and they can be fine. The biggest disappointment, I think, for them has been the offense. They are the number 1 offense in the SEC, but in conference play, they are averaging less points per game than Mississippi State, which is just baffling. They're the number 1 offense in the SEC because their first 4 weeks, they played Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Georgia Southern, and Wake Forest. I know all those teams are powerhouses, so no disrespect to the Paladins and, the rest of the bunch, but they run those numbers up and they beat teams by 70, and then they played a team that had a pulse in Kentucky, and that's the game that they did not need to lose. They lose to Kentucky, and now their whole season feels like a disappointment right now, but they can definitely turn it around. But I do like that point, Zach. I really do like that because this was supposed to be their year, and it looks like they're going to fall on their face, which I think is funny, but it is disappointing for Ole Miss.
I got another sleeper pick.
I got one.
I still have 2.
Go ahead,
So
Landon.
let me hear Landon's.
We're going to come out of the Big 12 and go Oklahoma State.
No questions.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I
you
think
had a chance to prove that you could be the Big 12's team in Oklahoma with Oklahoma leaving to the SEC, and you suck.
They're 3-5. Do you know the last time Oklahoma State had a losing record?
I don't.
It was Mike Gundy's first season in 2005.
He's the second longest tenured coach.
That's 18 straight winning seasons, and they're 3-5 and awful in the Big 12.
I think there's a couple teams in that league because I think Utah's a little bit of a disappointment too.
Zach, my secondary to that was the Big 12 in general.
Yeah. Which I mean,
is that fair?
That's
knew it wasn't
not
gonna
necessarily fair.
You knew it wasn't going to be as strong. It's hard to win. It's still a fairly deep league and where it's not easy to win each week. But I think it's disappointing in the teams that people thought were going to be good are not. That's where I think it's been a disappointment.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad league.
Yeah.
I think all of everybody's expectations for certain teams, that's what I think has been kind of flipped.
I do like the
that's
Utah
fair.
pick,
I
think it's Cam Rising. I think that's the disappointment for Utah because the defense has been fine. It's not the defense, it's the offense. They can't score points because Cam Rising is like that one dude on SpongeBob where it's like every morning I wake up and I break my legs and every afternoon I break my arms, and he falls down the stairs and it's just glass bone. So I think Cam Rising has been the disappointment for Utah. Sorry I cut you off there, Cam. I just wanted to get that in.
No, you're good. I was just going to say I agree with Zach. I think the teams that we thought were going to be the best teams in the Big 12, I think it's just different. I think different teams have emerged, which I think you're going to see that across all conferences, honestly, with no divisions and teams playing random teams in the conference. You're going to see random teams rise and fall depending on who they play. Like Indiana hasn't really played anyone yet, and we already talked about them and how impressive they've been, but they haven't really played anyone. BYU, they do have that win over Kansas State, but they also haven't played a lot of the other good teams in the Big 12. So it's hard to tell sometimes, who is really that impressive and who isn't when you don't play everyone that you are used to playing, if that makes sense.
Well, with all the conference realignment this year, I mean, that's totally nuts. I mean,
yeah.
And another Big 12 that was preseason top 25 was Kansas.
Yikes.
Yeah,
they're
terrible. Jalen Daniels is bad.
Very bad. He's had a bad year, and he was a dark horse Heisman guy for me. So, yikes, that was bad on me. Bad read. I got 2 I'll do them quick here. This one's out of left field, and this one really isn't like disappointing on the national standpoint. It's disappointing for me personally. Northern Illinois, they beat Notre Dame in week 2, and they were America's darling before Vanderbilt became America's team. And everything was in front of them. They got ranked in the AP poll, and there was a chance that we could have had a team in the MAC in the playoff conversation, and that would have been absolutely awesome because I know that we all love Maction. And Northern Illinois, they beat Notre Dame, and in the next 2 weeks they lose back-to-back games they lose to Buffalo when they're nationally ranked. Then they lose to NC State. They also have losses to Toledo, and then they just got walked off on with a field goal by Ball State. So Northern Illinois had a chance to catch lightning in the bottle, and they didn't do it after they beat Notre Dame. That's kind of disappointing for them. Not really on a national stage. My biggest disappointment, though, on a national stage, outside of the ones we clearly mentioned, because Florida State's the clear answer, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offense has been absolutely atrocious. They were a top 5 offense last year. Now they are the worst offense in the SEC, and I'm pretty sure that they would very much like to have their boy Jeff Lebby back after they told Mississippi State fans, good luck with Jet Lebby. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're regretting those words because you guys can't score points at all, and it sucks because their defense actually is pretty damn good. They actually have the pieces to be a good football team. They just can't put it together offensively, and the SEC has slapped them in the mouth, and we're going to have to see how they get up and respond because Brett Venables, guys, he might not make a bowl game, and Oklahoma might have a losing record, and that's another one. We just mentioned Oklahoma State. When's the last time Oklahoma didn't make a bowl? Because their final,
I don't think they made a bowl in 2021 or 2022.
No,
It was the Lincoln Riley era.
His first
when they lost to West Virginia for the first time.
His first year at Oklahoma, he went 6-6, and they went and they lost in a bowl game. So losing record, yes, he's done it before, but a bowl game, I don't know. Here's their final schedule.
I have just looked this up. The last time Oklahoma didn't make a bowl game was 1998.
There you go. This is their remaining schedule. They have Maine this week. That's a win, even though I made a joke about it on Twitter. So hopefully Maine does, fight them a little bit. Then they have Missouri, which is winnable, but again, they can't score points, so I don't know. Then they have Bama and LSU. They have to win 2 of those 4 games. I don't know if they do that. And if he doesn't make a bowl game, is he on the hot seat? Yes, he is.
Yes, of course.
And would Oklahoma pull the trigger? Yes, they would. Because they're Oklahoma, and I feel like they are going to pull the trigger faster because they're in a league that they could definitely get buried and forgotten about very quickly. And that's a problem.
Even if they were in the Big 12 and had this record, that's unacceptable at Oklahoma.
Yep.
They would fire him.
Agreed.
You have to win there.
You have to. And they were the class of the Big 12. I know that it was Texas and Oklahoma, but Oklahoma definitely ran that conference. Not to take away from Texas a little bit. I know.
No,
Texas
you're right. It was
okay.
Oklahoma.
I know. I mean,
no argument here.
Is Texas, Oklahoma, but Oklahoma had the championship rings to prove it. Texas had the appearances to prove it. But Oklahoma ran that conference, and now they are, like I just said, like they could very easily get forgotten about in the SEC if they don't turn it around quickly. This is a big hire for whoever Brett Venables brings in as his OC next year if they keep him, because if he makes another wrong hire, he's done. They have to score points because I associate Oklahoma with points, and they're not scoring them right now.
He won't live to see another 4-4 season.
No, God, no. I mean, I do think there's a chance they beat Missouri and they go 6-6, but I mean, at the beginning of the season, I predicted them to go 7-5. I didn't have high hopes for them, but I did not.
If they lose 3 or 4 games early next year, he's out quick.
Yeah, I didn't think the offense was going to be this bad, but I love the off the wall disappointment picks. I love everything. I just love talking college football. I could talk college football all day, but let's go ahead and wrap it up here. We're trying to keep these episodes shorter and split them up a little bit more, but let's go into our final segment that we always do on these sports. I gotta say sports talk, but I don't know if that's kind of cliche or not. But these sports focused podcasts here, and let's do our Hang the Banner segment. Hang the Banner is brought to you by. We still don't have any sponsors, but sponsors, if you're listening, we've mentioned a lot of things today.
LASIK.
Yeah. Hang the Banner is brought to you by LASIK Eye Surgery. LASIK Eye Surgery. If you hate glasses, do it. So that's simple.
It's weird though.
All right. Who wants to start Hang the Banner? That was the worst sponsor read of all time.
I'll hang the banner first. So I got to go there. It hurts my soul a little bit, but there are 2 football teams in the country, 2 FBS programs that have beaten 3 nationally ranked teams. One of them is my beloved Texas Longhorns, who beat number 10 Michigan, who has proven to not be for real. Number 18 Oklahoma, who has proven to not be for real. And number 25 Vanderbilt. Texas came into this season with all of the hype around them. This was the year they had finally built the roster. Quinn was the starter. Everything was unquestioned coming into this season that Texas was going to cakewalk through this season. The only real team that Texas has seen all year was Georgia, and Texas looked like a high school JV team for 3.5 quarters of that football game. So, that being said, they're still in a playoff hunt, but I think some things have shifted right now because, yes, they have 3 wins over ranked teams. I'm not sure what their signature win really is right now. I'm not sure that team has one. And they're gonna have to figure some things out. The next several weeks, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and then right after Thanksgiving, they get Texas A&M in College Station. They haven't had a tough road game in the SEC yet. You better hang your banner on where you've been, but you better figure out where the heck you're going.
That Arkansas game in Fayetteville is going to be interesting.
Aren't all Arkansas games in Fayetteville interesting?
Yes.
They do the Woo Pig Suey thing. It's a strange.
I like it.
A lot of cult culture in the SEC. I got to throw that out there.
Culture.
You get it.
Love it.
Go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I texted you guys before this, and I said, quote, God forgive me for my hang the banner tonight, because I am about to eviscerate this poor team. And Hunter, you already hinted at him. Look, I came into this as a West Virginia fan. We fired our defensive coordinator today. Jordan Leslie was a terrible, terrible pick as our defensive coordinator. And so I went looking, on ESPN. I went looking for the stats of how bad West Virginia's defense have been. And to my surprise, there are a ton of teams that are way worse than West Virginia on the defensive side of the ball. Hunter's pointing to Mississippi State right now, but I got to kick it even further down the list. Hunter already mentioned them. Kent State. We got to talk about Kent State for a second. They're 0-8 in the MAC, and I don't even want to look up their schedule right now. Viewer discretion advised on that one. And I'm about to put the parental advisory thing right here. You guys, if you don't want to listen to this, close your ears. Yards per game given up by Kent State, 541. That's 134th in the country. There's only 134 teams in the FBS. Passing yards per game, 277. That's 129th. Rushing yards per game, 264. That's 134th in the country. Points per game, 46. They're giving up 46 points per game. That's also dead last. 46 points per game is actually 5 more points per game than the next worst team. And to cap it all off, their stadium name is Dick's Stadium. Go look it up. Dick's Stadium. Kent State, you are a terrible program, and you need to figure it out. That's all.
Their remaining schedule: Ohio, Miami of Ohio, Hold the Phone on a Tuesday night on national television, Akron versus Kent State.
That's a rivalry game, Bubba.
It is for the wagon wheel. 2-6 Akron versus 0-8 Kent State. That is going to be appointment television.
Just because I love to stir the pot, Kent State, Mississippi State, what's the spread?
I think Kent State.
I think Mississippi.
Kent State hangs around. Kent State hangs around.
No,
They do. They
No.
do.
Mississippi
Kent State
wins it 7-3.
Kent State is one of the worst teams that this
Yep.
college football
You-
landscape has ever seen.
You know what, Jordan? I think I'd be happy with 7-3 because that means my defense actually did something. I think I might be happy there.
Here's the thing. I think that Cumberland team that lost 263-0 would put up more points than Kent State.
Oh my gosh, that was great, Cameron.
So that was my official hang the banner. I do want to make a side note here. Special, secondary hang the banner here. Liberty football. You guys talk so much shit to JMU fans about not playing in a strong conference and not being ready for FBS football and 12-team playoff. We're going to make it easily. We're going to run the Conference USA. And then you go and lose to 0-7 Kennesaw State, who hasn't even won an FBS game yet. Hang the banner. Liberty football, you're terrible.
Hoot hoot. Owls.
Hunter, I'll go next.
Go ahead.
Hang the banner, the Iowa under. It's just not hitting anymore this year. The under.
Three
The under's
40-point games, boys. Three
Yeah.
40-point games.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Zach, you can probably elaborate a little bit. But what happened? Did they just?
Hey, they
find-
finally figured out that the backup quarterback's better than the starting quarterback.
Nice. Okay.
My
makes
theory is all the kids that were
With Peyton
caught
Mansell.
gambling got off the team. That's my theory.
And hot take, I think they have the second best running back in the country.
Wow.
Or maybe top 3.
Okay. All right.
Caleb Johnson's awesome.
All right.
And he'll be an NFL back someday.
Heck yeah.
We'll
But yeah.
just throw that up there.
I like
Simple.
that.
Hang the banner for me this week.
Hang a banner, RIP Iowa unders. I have a simple one, and I'll let Zach close it out. Hang a banner, Mississippi State women's soccer. They won their first ever SEC regular season championship. It's the only thing I have going as a Mississippi
Gracious.
State fan that is
Literal banner.
positive. Literally the only thing that's positive. A shout out James Armstrong and the MSU soccer team. They are ranked, I think, number 3 in the country right now.
Yo. Hire James Armstrong as your DC, bro.
Legitimately, they have given up, I think, only one goal in SEC play the entire conference schedule. So they play defense. So he might be able to figure it out. But no, I had a different hang the banner, but I just wanted to do this one. That way, if we were long for time, I could cut it really short. So congratulations, Mississippi State women's soccer, SEC regular season champs. Keep doing your thing in the NCAA tournament. Go ahead, Zach.
Hunter, real quick, you're about to get dragged by Kyle for that. I just want you to know.
I do not care about Kyle at this moment. Nothing from these Ole Miss fans can break me. They have their own problems to deal with. If they're focused on me, then they're clearly not focusing on the right thing for the rest of this season.
Zach, finish this off.
All right. Well, we haven't talked enough baseball, and we've got this historically amazingly cool World Series. So Dodgers Yankees, which is obviously like, come on, guys. I understand that, all the thumbs ups and downs and stuff. Like, this is going to be the most watched World Series in probably a decade. So, but the Dodgers are rolling. They're up 3-0, and I'm watching Game 4 tonight, and I want to hang the banner for Steve Bartman because that's no longer like his was an accidental play in the stands with Moises Alou going up in 2003 in the NLCS for the Cubs. And in Game 4 of the freaking World Series, Mookie Betts leaps up to make a catch in foul territory. He caught the ball, and the Yankees fan is literally opening his glove while he's still up there and taking the ball out. It is the funniest and also stupid, like kind of dangerous. Don't freaking do that play. And so they correctly called him out, but the replay was absolutely hilarious.
Hire that guy as your defensive coordinator, Hunter.
Yeah. Hunter.
Literally
There you go.
anybody else. I'll take anybody else at this moment. But that'll wrap it up.
No, hold on. I got to get
Whoa.
Herod's baseball comment on that.
Whoa.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Bartman because Bartman, to me, nobody's ever caught a worse break than Steve Bartman.
Literally, he's still in
he did
hiding.
what any fan in that situation would have done. The bozo at the Yankees game tonight, only Yankees fans would do something that's stupid.
It's so stupid. And then before we wrap up, Hunter, I have an honorable mention, hang the banner, and it's for the New England Patriots because they won a literally impossible game on Sunday. They beat the New York Jets, which that's an absolute dumpster fire of a situation. But here's the stat. Ready? When a team scores 20 or more points, they do not turn the ball over, and they allow fewer than 250 yards to the other team, that team is now 750, now won all time. It was the first ever loss by an NFL team when they do those three things. The Jets losing to the Patriots on Sunday.
Best meme I saw all weekend from the NFL was Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall and a couple other Jets, and it was like loaded Jets roster, the best Jets roster maybe of all time, versus Jacoby Brissett and the power of friendship, and the power of friendship won, and that was the funniest thing to me. I was like, that's hilarious. That's good. Congratulations, New England Patriots, on being the one in that stat there. But I love the football talk. Love to hang the banners, guys. We are Press Box After Dark. If you want to listen to all of our episodes, you can catch us on Spotify and Apple Music. That's at Pressbox After Dark. Interact with us on Twitter. We've had a bunch of interactions. All the UMass fans are following us because I've been interacting with them on Twitter. All love for my ass people as they travel down to Starkville this weekend. Can't wait to see that game. It's going to be a dumpster fire. But follow us on Twitter. That's at PressboxAD. Interact with us there. You can also see our website in the bio. That is PressboxAfterDark.com. All of our blogs, Zach's weekly NFL blogs. Jordan's going to pick up 3 Up, 3 Down in the offseason, perhaps. Maybe. We'll see. We are going to pick it up in the offseason. And then I'm doing our weekly picks breakdown for college football on PressboxAfterDark.com. And then you can catch us on Instagram at PressboxAfterDark. And you can catch us on TikTok at PressboxAD. Does anybody have anything else they want to say before we wrap up this episode here, guys? Love the football talk.
Suck it, Hunter.
Take a breath, Hunter. Jeez.
Nah, never can. Can't do it. Cannot do
Stinks. Your team stinks.
Love you, boys.
it. God dang it.
Go UMass.
It's time for the Sonic drive of the game. And perhaps, as far as I'm concerned, the drive of the game may be our drive home from Starkville to Tupelo.
You can't fire me! I got a contract! I'm Rance White!